Hello there. My name is MJ, and if you don't know me, I am your host for today's Creative Smear podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you're having a fantastic day. So, I'd like to introduce myself if you're here for the first time. I am an avid rambler. So if you enjoy listening and sitting to someone's inner thoughts or inner thought process, this is for you. I tend to gear my content towards the creatives, creators, and I like to say spiritually curious. So I tend to get a little bit woo-woo-y, but I also try to keep it down to earth as much as possible. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I certainly enjoyed making it. Don't forget to share and like and subscribe and all that stuff. As creatives, we really enjoy and much appreciate all of that lovely stuff. So without further ado, here is today's podcast. Enjoy. The knowledge is there, the things are in the way. So I have been labeled, or if you want to call it that, I know one of my gifts, if you also want to call it that, or one of my abilities that I have is, can be labeled as claircognizance, which is a really hard, quote, gift to have. Because you just know things without knowing where they're coming from. And most of the time when you explain something to somebody, they want to know where your resources are or what your sources are. And it's hard because you don't know, you just know. People don't like that. So I look at it like this. We all have this knowledge, or I know I have this knowledge, and things just are in the way. It's not clear always. Like, I am superbly blind as far as my eyesight goes. I am in the double digits for nearsightedness. I'm super blind. I can't see very far away at all. Everything is blurry all the time if I don't have my glasses on or contacts or, corrective things. And so that's kind of the way I look a little bit. It's not that I can't. It's that there's something in the way, right? Like your eyesight's blocked because there's, like you're trying to see the sunset, but the city's in the way. Or, like how you go outside for a full moon and you can kind of see it through the trees, but like the clear view's not there. So it's kind of like, so that's kind of the same thing. Like I feel like I have knowledge, but it's just blocked, right? Or our innate ability to heal ourselves is there. It's that the poison's in the way. The things that are blocking it are in the way. And sometimes you don't even know what that thing is that's blocking it. You just know. It's the same way with finances. Like the ability to do all the things to make yourself comfortable, and to all of that. It's all there. We just block ourselves from the ability to do those things through mindset and all of that. And here's the thing about knowing. Here's the thing about truth that no one tells you until you start to really accept truth over and over, and you get into the habit of accepting the truth. Or truth, because there's not just one truth. There are truths, right? And there could be two opposing truths to a thing, right? And so once you start to realize and do those things, what they don't tell you is that most people don't want the truth. They don't actually want the truth. They just want something that's comfortable. And that is absolutely part of the human condition. Our brains want ease. It wants to conserve energy by doing things that's easier. And sometimes, most of the time, I find that truth is not easy. It is a muscle that needs to be, the acceptance of truth is something that needs to be flexed, just like anything else. Like you can't just run a marathon without training. You could try, but you're going to hurt yourself. It's going to hurt. And so if you start small with the acceptance, things start to kind of get out of the way because now you've flexed that muscle. Just like part of the eyesight problem, it gets worse because I spend a lot of time on the computer. I can do eye exercises. There's only so much I can do to correct it. But there is some things that I could do to correct it, right? So that things, and this goes back to manifestation and abundance, right? And that things are already, everything is available. You just have to get there, which is where that the journey is the purpose comes from, right? Because you can find those things and it's not a destination. There's many things to get and it's not just clumped in one spot. They're all over the place. And your journey, your purpose, or this is how I look at my life, is that my purpose is to find all the paths that I can to collect all the things that speak to me, right? If I look and there's like 5 paths in front of me, I pick one, just pick one. And I'll be like, okay, well, this path is going to teach me a lesson that I'll be able to pick up things like maybe I'm working on my finances right now. So maybe this is the path that I need to work on the finances. And maybe it doesn't end up being that way. Maybe that path, I'm searching for finances and I end up finding a child wound about that pertains to like my father wound, right? And so, okay, we're working on that. And then I get to a point where there's another fork in the road or another, path choice. And I'm like, all right, which one, do I want to continue working on the finance thing or do I want to work on my physical health? And sometimes you pick a path that you learn what you need to learn for both of those things to actually, because ultimately it's all connected. What's that saying? All roads lead to Rome or whatever. It's kind of that same thing, right? It's like by the end of the year, or at the end of our lives, we're coming back to the same spot. Like we've left from the same spot and we're going back to the same spot. Like we are born and we die in the same spot. So really the path goes to the same place, more or less. But when we get to that place, what happens? That's the eternal fucking question that everybody here does not know the fucking truth to, because we just weren't given that information or maybe we were when we're born, but we forget it because we're supposed to learn while we're here. That's part of our process. So yes, the ability, the things that we want, what you seek is seeking you. What you are looking for are things that are already available. They're out there in the wilderness. They're along the path, but you have to walk the path and learn the things to get to those things. You have to walk through some pain. You have to walk through some joy. You have to allow for things to happen. All of those things, and those are your paths, your learning paths. And again, it's not just clustered all in one. It's not like you're gonna fix this wound or, the lesson that you were given through your parents or your childhood or the things that you went through. Those are lessons given to you so that you can later on in life choose the path that you need to find the things that are innately yours. It's like you're born and it's like a big kapow, like the boom, the big bang or whatever. It's like every person born is its own big bang. And when that happens, your stars or your guiding lights are just kind of scattered. I almost envision like all over this like beautiful forest, and there's paths everywhere in this forest, and it's like a scavenger hunt, right? And so as you grow up and you experience like different suffering and tragedies and traumas, those are like clues as to where your guiding lights are, where your stars are, so you can collect all your pieces before you end up at the final destination. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we need multiple lives in order to find all of our pieces to make ourselves maybe whole. I don't particularly love that image because I feel like we are already whole. But for lack of a better vision or image, that's what I'm going with. And so but I'm picturing like enlightenment to be that, right, where you're having this moment where like now you feel like you're whole, or that you have this like knowledge of the whole, because we're all pieces of a whole. I know this isn't how that the quote goes, but there's a thing that I repeat to myself, is that I am both the ocean and a drop in the ocean. And that's exactly how we are, right? We're individuals, but we're not, just one star. Like, you're a star amongst many stars. Yes, can someone point to you and say you are this person? Sure. But also, if we scale out, it's an expansion and collapse. And so these are important things, concepts, right? In a journey, in a spiritual journey, in your journey, just in life in general. Those are for another day. Because what we're talking about, or what I'm going to remind myself what we're coming back to, is this concept that everything, like, if you want to call it manifestation, it seems to be a word that's a little bit overused. Just like for the longest time, I feel like mindfulness was a word that was overused in it. I heard a poem recently where someone was like, my mother taught me that if you repeat something over and over and over, it loses its value, it loses its meaning. And I feel like by saying manifestation over and over, we've kind of lost some oomph in that word. But really what it is just collecting or removing the obstacles in order to get to the place that to get to that thing that we are seeking out. Because what we seek are things that are already ours. We wouldn't seek them if we wouldn't even know they existed, right? If we wouldn't even know they existed, so there's no way for us to actually conceive them, right? And so if you have a thought that you want something at some point, that's a piece of something that you had or you have, because you're a piece of that, right? We cannot conceive something that does not exist or does not exist in our realm of thought. And by association, we are creators already, because we were created, so we are creators. We create life all the time. So it's yours. If you think it is yours. That's my explanation for that. That itself is manifestation. Now, what is in the way? What is the obstacle in the way? Right? And this is where I'll come back to that like claircognizance thing, where I've perceived it, I know it, but I can't see the path. I just know that it's there. It's like standing on top of a hill and seeing a city and seeing all these trees and valleys and hills in the way. And you're like, well, I see the city. I know that city exists, but I don't know what the path is to get there. So you just start walking, and hopefully you'll find a path. Maybe you'll get lost. You'll have to climb a tree and figure out where the hell you are. Like the path is there, right? And that's your goals. Like when you set goals, you've seen it. Right? You've seen the city, you set the goal. You're like, wow, the city is there. I see the city. All right, cool. Like, I can imagine it, so it exists. I might not know the path to get there, right? Many scientists, many writers, many people have said, I know this can happen. I know it exists. People call them crazy for saying, okay, well, this doesn't exist. And then it's created and then blah, blah, blah. My favorite example of this is the first person to run a 4-minute mile. Everybody was like, okay, humans just don't do that, right? And they were like, well, fuck you, I'm going to figure it out. So, and they did. And now it's something that happens all the time or not all the time, but people can run 4-minute miles because one person decided to say, no, I think you're crazy for saying that. We can't fucking do this because I'm going to figure it out, and then does it, right? If you perceive it, it can happen. Some of that stuff, we just don't have the knowledge, or maybe we just don't have the know-how to find the path to get there yet, but that's okay because we perceive it, it is somewhat of a reality. So, if you perceive it, you can, like, I'm beating this to death, but that's what I'm saying. Use whatever imagery helps for you. For me, it's always walking in a path through the woods. I will forever use that and the water analogy because those are the things that are always forefront in my mind. But yes, so perceived. So once you have that knowledge and you embody that thought process, things start to become just slightly less friction in them, right? Because rejection is kind of friction. Like it's this like pushback, but it's also like if you have a rusty wheel, it's hard to get the cart to go if you have a rusty wheel. But if you oil the wheel, then it's less friction. You've accepted the fact that, okay, well, there's friction here. So what can I do to fix this friction? What do I need to do? Okay, cool. Let's oil the wheel. Or maybe it needs to be replaced entirely. Okay. Or maybe just the spokes need to be replaced. Or the axle needs to be replaced. Like whatever it is, right? Where is the obstacle in the friction? What is friction equals obstacle, rejection equals obstacle. Where's the obstacle? What do I need to learn? What hard truth do I need to have or perceive for me to go around this obstacle so I can get to the goal or whatever my thought process is. I hope this is helping somebody. I know it's kind of tangenty, and when I get in these modes, like I get this like thing where like the connection is there, like it's something sparks in my brain and I'm like, there's a connection there. Like if this is helping me perceive movement forward, then maybe it helps somebody else. So it may be a little spiritually woo-woo for some people, but I don't think that there's a disconnect between spirituality and the actual world that we live in. That's just my belief. So I really do believe that it's all connected. But I also do believe that there's a time and a place for it. And I think thought process or feeling process is very spiritual. But when it comes to the practicality of things, I believe that we do need to be more grounded. I tend to be more on the ethereal side of things. So really, when I say I bring forth my own inner masculine or my own inner grounded practicality, that's something that I actually have to work on. That is a friction point for me. Growing up, that's my trauma. That is my like little golden key, if you want to call it that kind of is the finder of the path that's going to lead me to certain things. What door does this trauma key open? And it has to do with my finances, and it has to do with like my physical health, right? Because those are very grounded things. It's very earthly. It's very this realm that we're in right now, this like living space that we're in right now. And so, and that's that there's a truth in this reality as well as a truth in other realities, and they aren't always the same. And that's the paradox. What's that quote? It's by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and I can never remember it per word for word, but it's the indication of a first-rate intelligence is someone who can hold two seemingly opposing truths and still function, right? And so I feel like if we're going to strive for something, we can strive for that. And a question we can ask ourselves if we find that we're running up against something where we are rejecting, or we can say, that's not right. Like some of the verbiage that I find when I'm rejecting something, or is the word I should, or that's not, or I don't think. Those are things that make me go, oh, okay. Those are like little like reminder triggers for me that make me go, okay. Or I need. That's another one. Those are indicators for me to ask the question, can I allow myself to look at this differently and still hold what I feel is my truth? That allows us to be what many people have conflictive conversations with people, because their reality and their truth may be different than yours. It may not be the truth. It may be a delusion, but they might not be ready to hear a different version of the truth for themselves, right? And so we can ask ourselves, am I willing to see, or to at least hear out another truth and still hold my own if it applies? And we can work from there, right? Because I think openness is really great, but there has to be a boundary there too. We can't just open and allow everything, because then we won't be nothing. We won't be anything. We'll be everything and nothing, which we already are, but that's another thing. So anyway, I feel like that's enough. I'm being told that is enough. I think that's enough for 20 minutes. I'm gonna go. You're beautiful, you're wonderful, you're perfect just the way you are, and there's still room for improvement. That is a quote that comes up on my calendar once a month, randomly. I have it set for random days. And it's still, I remind myself of that all the time, me and my perfectionism, because I am perfect, and I'm not, and I'll never will be. But it's both. That's the paradox, right? The juxtaposition that is the paradox. Okay. Yeah, I love your faces. I think you're wonderful. I hope that you have whatever wonderful day. I hope there were some kind of ahas in there. I'm going to put in the notes, podcast notes, everything that's relevant to be in the podcast notes. And there may or may not be an action page in there, or if there is not an action page when you look at this, follow me on my newsletter as well. Go to Substack. I'm at MJ Coppola. You can follow me on social media. That is MJ_spirit or Scarlet _spirit. Again, all of this will be in the notes. But I would love for you to come on this journey with me. I ramble a lot with these things, and this is the right. I'm saying should. I feel like I should put more of these out, because I ramble like this all the amount of voice notes that I have that have these kind of things is insane. But I am working on being more practical and logical, and working on that element of being on this earth a little bit more. So instead of just like creating all these things and not putting it out, I'm working on putting them out. So therefore, my newsletter goes out 3 times a week, as well as the podcast at least once a month, which you are listening to now. What's the use in creating if it's not going to be out there? Because someone needs to hear your voice. Someone needs to hear the perspective from your point of view. Even if it's just one person. So, anyway, again, I'll sign off. I love your faces. I hope you have a wonderful day.